Hey, it's your contrarian soul guide, Dawn, and you're listening to Sovereignty Rising, the space where we unlearn the fear and reclaim the flame. If you've ever felt like your emotions were too much, you've been told to maybe calm down, breathe through it, push through it, meditate it away. If you've done all the mindset work, but your body still doesn't feel safe, this episode is for you. Because today we're throwing out the narrative that your nervous system is broken and we're reclaiming it for what it truly is, your oracle, your sacred guide, the wisdom you've been trained to ignore. Welcome to Sovereignty Rising. Ditch the fear, embrace your flame. I'm Dawn Elgin, contrarian soul guide, visionary mystic, and creatrix of practical spiritualism. And this is the space where we strip away the fear, burn the old stories down, and reclaim the power that was never truly lost, just buried. Here, we dive into raw, unfiltered conversations on emotional healing, spiritual awakening, and the art of unlearning everything that keeps you stuck, small, and disconnected from your truth. Together, we rise like phoenixes. Flame first, fear last. Let's rise together. So let's start with the lie. You're too sensitive. You overreact. You're not grounded. You've heard this. Maybe you've even said it to yourself. It's the lie of pathologized sensitivity, the idea that your body's responses are a problem to fix. But let me tell you something. Your nervous system is not a flaw. It's not a malfunction. It's an oracle that has never stopped telling you the truth. It tells you when you're safe. It tells you when you're in danger, when a person, a place, or an energy isn't aligned. When your body says no and your mouth says yes, it's telling you. But we've been taught to override all of that wisdom. So let's get clear. Your nervous system is your body's internal GPS. It's made of two main parts: your sympathetic, your fight and flight, which mobilizes you for action, as well as your freeze and fawn, which is like your predator prey. I don't see you and you don't see me. And then there's your sympathetic, which is your rest and digest. It brings you back to calm. When we're in sympathetic, the other thing that happens is our blood shoots out to or flows out into our hands and our arms and our legs and our feet so that we can fight and we can run. It moves away from the internal organs. So, hence why when we go into parasympathetic and we get this calming, we're also bringing the blood flow back in so that the body and the organs can start to digest and we can start to reset and find synergy again. This means that our body's energy is not going into our immune system, it's not going into our repair, it's not going into digestion when we are in a state of stress, when we are in sympathetic. So this is important to know because our body is meant to move between these two systems over and over again throughout the day, about every 90 minutes to 2 hours. And the system is really developed to keep you alive. But our trauma, stress, and chronic dysregulation can get stuck in survival mode. And here's the part most people miss. You don't need to fix it. You need to listen to it. Your nervous system will always choose protection over performance. It doesn't care if you're on a deadline or trying to look fine. It cares if you feel safe. So, how does your nervous system speak? It speaks through sensation, the tight chest, racing thoughts, numbness, jaw clenching, shaking, exhaustion after being on. And this is not drama and it's not dysfunction. It's not being extra. It's actually sacred communication. And your job isn't to judge the signal, it's to attune to it, to build a relationship with your inner oracle, one that says, I will not override you anymore. I used to override everything. I'd feel my body say no, but I'd say yes because it was easier or because I wanted to be accepted, liked, loved, normal. I'd have anxiety in my chest before a conversation and tell myself, oh, just be nice, accept it. I'd work through burnout and call it commitment. It was brutal. And I wondered why I couldn't hear my intuition. until I realized my intuition was speaking through my nervous system. I just wasn't listening. When I started honoring those signals, resting, saying no, grounding, feeling into my body, noticing what was activated in me, all of my clarity started coming back. My energy stabilized and my power returned. My intuition was always speaking to me. I just couldn't hear it because I'd ignored it for so long. We were disconnected. So let's talk about why this happens. Well, we were taught to perform instead of feel, to push through instead of pause. We were taught to be agreeable instead of attuned. You were never taught that feeling safe in your body is the foundation of your power. You were taught to trust authority, not your body, to follow the rules, not your gut, to stay regulated for others, but not for yourself. And that is not sovereignty. That is compliance. And you didn't come here for that. That's not why you were born. What we are really talking about here is self abandonment. We abandon ourselves over and over. And every time we do that, we teach our body and our nervous system that they can't trust us, that they're on their own. Well, they're like children being left unsupervised. They're scared. And in that fear, they become hyper protective. So, this means when we have someone or something that triggers us and the system freaks out that something is wrong, that's what the body through the nervous system is trying to tell you. Something is wrong. Now, what is happening in that moment might not actually be danger. However, the nervous system reacts to the potential danger, and it's still not broken. It's a child, and it needs not only supervision, but love and nurturing. You not only need to come back to you, you need to do it consistently and kindly to reestablish self trust. So let's talk about this in a real life situation. So, if you've listened to my story, you know that when I was 18, I was married for the first time. It was my first husband. And in this relationship, it was not healthy at all. My first husband was sociopathic and a narcissist. It was extraordinarily abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually. I lost multiple children. And to survive, well, first to get into that situation, I had to abandon myself. I had to ignore the warning signs. What I was controlling, I took as a form of showing me that he loved me. There's lots of reasons for this. And often we learn these traits, these behaviors very young. And so I learned very young that being yelled at, being hit, being abused was ways that I was going to be shown that I was loved. And so it's not shocking when I look back that that was the way that I will say misunderstood love. I made a faulty connection with the concept. And so we go through this marriage, and I married until about 20 years old. And when I was 20, I ended up leaving him. And that was a whole traumatic event. And after about 6 months, I ended up being divorced. It was fast tracked pretty quick. And I'd gotten some warnings, some phone calls that told me I needed to leave, that he was still stalking me, that this wasn't over, and he was not letting go. And so in the middle of the night, I left. I literally went into hiding, and I didn't tell people where I was other than my very, very close inner circle. And I did that not only to protect myself, but to protect them. So fast forward, I come back to Victoria, where I was living at the time, to be with my family and my friends again. And at the time, I didn't know this, but what I had was an emotional go bag prepped all the time in my nervous system. So that means my nervous system was constantly on. Now, it had obviously been constantly on while I was married. I was in a constant state of hyperprotection, and I needed to protect myself all the time. I needed to make sure I said the right thing, I did the right thing, that I made no mistakes. Because if I made a mistake, my life was on the line. And it wasn't a joke, it was absolutely the truth. This was what my life was like. So as time went on, I still kept that go bag ready. If I made a mistake, if I said the wrong thing, I was always in this hypertensive state. But as time continued to go on, I still had a go bag ready. So what I mean by this is that even in coming relationships, I was always prepared. My nervous system was waiting for somebody to hit me, to lash out, to leave me. I was always waiting for something to go wrong. And then as time continued to go on, even though I had healed a lot of those traits, I didn't flinch when somebody raised their hand. I didn't freak out when somebody raised their voice. I admit I dealt with a lot of my trauma. But one thing I still had was this, what I call a go bag ready, which means I always knew all of the exits. If I was in a restaurant, I knew where the exits were. I tried to keep my back to a wall at all times so nobody could sneak up behind me. I always had an out. I always was paying attention to what people look like. If somebody walked in and they were, over 6 feet, over 200 pounds, and they had curly black hair, I was already hyper vigilant. I was ready. And so I had a go bag ready. And I had this go bag ready for about 10 years. I was easily into my 30s before this stopped. And then at some point through the healing journey, I shifted, and I shifted from the flight mechanism to the fight mechanism. And so probably what happened there was that shift began when I had my son, and now I had somebody else's life to protect. And so then I started to have what I call my fight bag. I had a plan in my head, in the back of my mind all the time, as to what I would do if I seen him. So if he suddenly walked into my work, how would I handle this? How would I protect myself and protect my child, to protect my life? And so I had a fight bag ready. And so I was in this sympathetic state still, but I'd gone from victim, from fleeing, to survivor, fighting victim, and always being ready for that. And it wasn't until I started to get more present with myself and I started to do deeper healing work where I started to unpack the bag. I did a whole ritual around this where I wrote out the story of what had happened in that relationship. I hired a psychologist to come to my house and I read the story to them, and they found all the places that something had gone on that was so dark and so brutal that I didn't want to write it on paper. And so they found those holes. We talked it through. They were there for hours. And then finally, when they left, my husband lit this big burn barrel. And I threw in this bathrobe that I'd been carrying around the whole time that had this energy in it. And I went to burn the letter. And something that my mentor had said to me is, it won't be done until you can wish him peace. And I was like, meh, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But I went to go throw this letter in the burn barrel, and all of a sudden, I was stunned. I was standing there. I was like, oh my God, I wish you peace. And in that moment, I knew that hurt people hurt people. And if he didn't find peace, he would always be perpetuating pain onto somebody else, onto the next person. I'd been his second wife. I wasn't the first one. And so I knew in that moment in my soul that I needed to wish him peace because it was his healing that would stop the perpetuation of pain. And it was my healing that would stop the perpetuation of pain, not only within the world around me, my defensiveness, my reactions, my triggers, but in my ability to let go and allow my nervous system to start coming into a state of calm. And the more that I did this work, moving through my 40s and started doing my spiritual work, at some point, I not only didn't have a go bag and I didn't have a fight bag, I had no baggage left. Suddenly, I was just present with myself. And at some point, I became aware. Somebody asked me the question once, and they said, well, what would you do if you saw him now? And I said, I have no idea. I'll know when it happens. if it happens. And because I'm so present with myself, I'll trust myself to know what to do. I don't have to have fake conversations or preparations for this. I'm okay. That was a big moment. And my nervous system hadn't been broken, but I'd abandoned myself for so long, not listening to myself, not listening to my intuition, that I needed to come back to myself. I needed to be present with myself so that I could do this, so that I could come back into my strength and know I have my back. And that moment when I was present, my nervous system could suddenly calm down. My body could settle. Chronic pain, issues that I'd had started to just heal. What seemed like they disappeared. And it's not that they disappeared, it's that my nervous system could start to regulate itself. The blood could flow back into my organs and body. The tension could come out of my pelvic floor, out of my pelvis, and things could start to ease. Things could start to heal because I was here again. I was present. My body and my nervous system were no longer alone. And so today I want us to do an embodiment practice that I call Ask the Oracle. And so with this practice, I want us to just drop in. Now, as always, I'm going to caveat if you are walking, if you are driving, if you're operating heavy machinery, or any other space where it's not safe to do so, you do not need to close your eyes. You can soften your gaze, or you can keep your gaze open and do it this way first. But when you're in a safe space, when you feel like you can, I want you to also practice this with your eyes closed. There's a reason for this, and it's because we're starting to hone the intuition, our sixth sense of being able to sense outside of ourselves. And so being able to close our eyes and come inward is a powerful thing. But I want you to be able to do this practice both with your eyes open and with your eyes closed. So either way here is going to be great. So drop into your body and start to just first take a nice deep breath. Breathing in through your nose, nice and deep. See if you can soften your pelvic floor, your buttocks, so that you can breathe into your belly. And as you breathe, I want you to feel your body, feel the soles of your feet, feel your buttocks connected to the seat if you're sitting down, if you're walking, feeling the earth beneath you. And just feel your body, feel your breath in your body. Feel where your breath is landing. If it's hard to take a deep breath, feel that breath entering into your rib cage, that expansion of the intercostal muscles. If you're feeling tension, what does it feel like to breathe into your neck and your shoulders? Just notice that. Notice where your breath is landing in your body. Notice its texture, its temperature. And now ask yourself, where in my life do I feel tension right now? And what is that tension trying to tell me? So often we feel the tension in the breath, the shallowness in the breath in a certain area of our life. And what is it trying to tell you? So maybe you get a hit, a picture of a place, or just a knowing, a relationship, work, somewhere. And when you think of that place or that experience, that relationship, where in your body are you holding the tension? And what is that tension trying to tell you? And just listen to that and just breathe. And then I want you to say, I honor the signal. I release the need to override. I choose to trust the wisdom in my body. This is how we rebuild. This is how we rebuild trust with the oracle. Not with logic, not with thinking, not with mind, but with presence. To come back home to ourselves. And I want you to repeat this practice over and over again. If you can do this practice a few times a day, it'd be phenomenal. If you can do this every single day for this next week between our episodes, or even just making it a daily practice for yourself. Often when I drop in when I'm teaching a yin class and I'll say, where are you holding tension in your body? And let's scan through it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'm holding tension in my right hip. Now, because I do psychosomatic work, I'm often like, oh, what's that about? Are you having a hard time stepping forward? Do you not feel safe in your body right now? Is this a presence thing right now? Or are you holding some tension about creativity, about safety? And so our body is always talking to us. And it's talking to us so that we can become aware of something. It's not broken. It's not a problem. It's just trying to communicate with us. And the more we practice this, the more aware we can become and the faster we become. We become super quick. So all of a sudden we're driving and we notice tension in your shoulders and you're like, oh, am I feeling that tension in my shoulders because of something going on in the environment, the way people are driving, something going on outside the car? Am I feeling that tension because I was just thinking about something? Is there something that is being spinning that happened earlier today that I didn't deal with? So the tension's coming from something. It's not broken. So we want to dig into like, where is that coming from? And then just breathe into it. Okay, now I'm present with you. I'm hearing you. I'm 100% in the now. And just breathe and notice what happens. Notice what happens with presence. This isn't just about deep breath work and somatic healing. It's really about how you live. Living from your oracle, it means you pause before you say yes. I am a believer in taking a big breath before we say yes or no. It means feeling into your body's no and honoring it. And it means that you check in with your energy, not with your calendar. You trust the contraction just as much as you trust the expansion. And you stop outsourcing your clarity. You stop pushing past the signs. You start choosing what's true, even if it's inconvenient. This is nervous system sovereignty. This is embodied freedom. So here's what I want you to remember. You're not broken. You're not dysregulated because you failed. You're attuned because your body is wise. Your nervous system isn't a problem, it's an oracle. And it's ready for you to listen again. This week, pause when something feels off and ask, what's my body telling me right now? And honor that truth, even if no one else understands it. If you want support attuning to your oracle, come join me inside the Unlearning. It's our 5-day boot camp for coming home to your own wisdom. We begin soon on June 9th, and the link is in the show notes. Until next time, trust the signal, trust the slowness, and always trust yourself. You are not broken. You are not too much. You're remembering who you've always been. I see the light in you, and it is freaking brilliant. I so want you to see it too. You are not broken. You are not too much. You're remembering who you've always been. And this journey is just getting started. If today's episode lit something in you, hit follow so you don't miss what's coming. And if you're feeling it, leave a review. It helps with more soul-led women find this space. Want to go deeper? Come find me on YouTube, Facebook, our private Facebook community, The Awakening Circle, Instagram, TikTok, or at our website, practicalspiritualismco.com, for all the ways we can rise together. Not to worry, all those links are in our show notes. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay bold, and keep that fire lit.